Testing.
So I think this is episode 4 with Women in Sport, and we're looking at football this week, and I am joined by an array of fabulous footballers, just for a bit of alliteration. So just to get your mics right, can we start with you, Nikki? Can you just give me your full name and kind of your background story, basically, how you got into football?
Okay, so my name is Nikki Naden. I got into football from a very young age because of my dad. I think I pretty much came out of the womb with a football at my feet. My dad was a semi-professional footballer. He played for Southport and Stalybridge United. My brother didn't really take to football, so it was left to me. And I've been playing it probably since I was about 5.
That's a pretty good story, like.
That's a great story.
Mine is nowhere near as good as that.
I do realise I go a lot, and I noticed that on the playback. I was like, God, stop saying
Don't worry, it sounds
That's
natural.
a semi-pro as well.
God, I should have come to you
Pressure.
last. Okay.
Becky Corkish also goes by the name of Corky in the footballing world. Basically, started football when I was 4 because my brother was playing. I started off at Colby. Started playing in Debbie's Diddlers team at the age of 4 and just kind of progressed up from then.
My name's Becky Pate. I'm a PE teacher on the Isle of Man. I mainly started playing football in the back garden with my brother. He didn't have a brother, so I was his token brother, and we just used to kick about every day after school. In summer camps, used to always go away to my dad's in England, and we'd go on 2 or 3 week summer camps in the holidays. Absolutely loved it. So that's how I got into football. And then I joined the Manx League when I was 14 and haven't stopped since. So yeah, that's my story.
That's a good one as well.
Thanks.
To be fair.
Yeah.
I think she was glad that she got your job title in as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
My name's Kim Hicklin. I actually started a little bit later than everyone else. I started when I was 15. I used to play a little bit with like the kids in the street and at school and stuff, and my best friend Becky Cole kind of got me into playing. She actually dragged me to Royals training, to be fair, because I was a bit nervous. But yeah, I've played since then, really. Been at Royals for 17 years now. My story isn't quite as interesting as everyone else's, but I was a bit of a late bloomer, really, I think.
It's good. We've got a nice variety of stories there. That's perfect. So let's start with numbers on the Isle of Man. How is women's football on the island in terms of people participating and sort of support and coverage?
I think I can take that one, can't I? In terms of, there's only 6 women's teams at the moment. So obviously about, 10 years ago, there used to be double that. And I think the large number of participation drop is down to the fact that the FA changed the regulation to only allowing, you could only play in the Women's League when you were 16, which in fairness is the same in England. So it's just a rule that the affiliation have made. But I think with our micro demographic over here and having smaller numbers, that has definitely affected participation levels. If you do a comparison to if you do a comparison to hockey and netball, they're allowed to play from 14. So out of that junior transition, they've got this whole adult league that's really exciting, and they can develop. There's different divisions, there's lots of players. So I feel like that's probably an area that has affected that participation.
And is there no way that can be challenged?
I think I think every year the same issue comes up, and because it's obviously we have to be in line with the UK as well, there's literally nothing they can do about it. But as Beck said, we kind of lose the players from the age of 14 to 16, because once they hit like 14, 15, they kind of join a different sport, and then once they get a new circle of friends, they don't actually want to come back to football, which is a real shame, because if you look at some of the under 14 players, they're like really good. It's a shame, really, but I think if they don't change that rule, I think it's always going to be an issue. And unfortunately, I can only see things going even worse, to be honest. There's talk already about another potential team dropping out, and it's kind of difficult as it is now, going from we used to play double the amount of games in a season. Now it's dropped to half that amount, and it feels like we've kind of got half a season now. At the moment, it feels for Royals we're playing every other week, which is a shame, but I think until they fix that issue, I can't honestly see the growth in the game, to be honest, certainly not in the Isle of Man.
It is really sad that, and you hear that with basketball, they said that back in the day there were loads of teams in a proper league, and it is really sad when you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place by the sound of it, and you're getting fewer and fewer people to play against through no fault of your own. And then how are you going to, 1, play the sport that you love, and 2, progress in the sport that you love? So it's a tricky one. Is there anything else you can do to sort of encourage girls to take up football, or at least stick with it?
I think with the take-up part, a lot has been done. So about 3 years ago, the whole curriculum got changed at school level. So that was revised completely, and teachers were really open to it and being forthcoming with accepting that there's a big platform for women's sport and for women's football, particularly in England. You've got the World Cup. It's massive now. And that was reflected in the change of the curriculum. So now the girls, just like they do hockey, netball and rounders, they also do fixtures now against every school in football, which is fantastic. We lead an Isle of Man schools football trip. We took 36 girls last year. Training numbers at extracurricular are fantastic and the girls really enjoy it. So at that level, it's there. Job's done. It's great. And then it is just that between the 14 and 16, which is a notorious age anyway for girls to drop out of sport, that's where we're missing. So we've got all of the start-up, all of the junior league, and that is just where there is that gap.
You have, I think recently they've created an under-18s girls team, and that's kind of to keep hold of some of the players that seem to be disappearing. I think it only started I think it was either this year or the end of last year, and that they seem to be getting a few fixtures. A couple of teams have been over here to play against them, and they're looking to go away and stuff. So I think that's a positive sign, really. If they could maybe even get like an under-18s kind of league going, that might try and keep hold of some of the players. It's definitely worth a shot anyway.
Yeah, or even potentially, so from my background in the UK, is kind of weeknights futsal or five-a-side, the uptake with that, because you don't have to be 16 to play that. Yeah. So you could have that, and mix the teams up, and you turn around and you say, everyone comes down on a Monday, a Thursday night, whichever, we hire out the NSC or somewhere that's indoor, so you get more take-up with the weather, and have the youngsters coming in playing that, because it's less contact as well. And it just keeps them interested and around the club. I've suggested it a few times, because what we used to do in Liverpool, we had a Monday night league was indoor five-a-side, and then Tuesday nights was futsal, which was really good as well for kind of developing the skills set, because it is a little more trickier for them.
They actually did look. They kind of spoke about potentially moving the women's football league to a summer kind of thing, because they do like a summer kind of business, more like a sociable league, really.
Like a business league.
Yeah, it is like a business league, and you do see a lot of new faces. But that's been talked about, and to be honest with you, I think it was in favour for like going completely moving it, but it's just a case of actually doing it, isn't it? I think they did a kind of like a survey, and I think it came back like most people that were voting, current players and people that weren't currently playing as well, and a lot of people said that if it was summer, they'd maybe go for it, and that kind of takes it away from clashing with like your hockey and your netball as well, which I think could be a positive. The summer league was on a weeknight, and that seemed the numbers were really good. I think there was
huge this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, really good. And you see every year like different teams entering. There was a rugby team in the last couple of years, and I think when it's a nice night and you're not taking up your weekend, people are kind of more like positive about going to play sport, aren't they? So I think potentially moving it to a summer and maybe even doing a weeknight, or certainly maybe bringing like a competitive competition in the summer and certainly trialling it. I think that would be a good move to see if numbers would increase.
It definitely sounds like there are steps, quite simple steps that can be taken to at least increase numbers, and I think it's just a case of action rather than words sort of situation.
Kids are enjoying it and loving it at school, and it is just that transition into that age, what can be there for them to do it.
They have at the start of every season, before I think it's like a month before, they have like a meeting, so all the managers or anyone involved with the club meet with Sam Nelson, who's the women and girls FA officer, and that was actually, the subject was brought up about the summer competition, and at the moment it's obviously like a business league, so it's not really very competitive, but they kind of brought the idea of keeping it as a business league, maybe even potentially making it a bit more competitive, but capping the amount of say like Ireland players that are in each team, so there's not like one team that's absolutely littered with Ireland teams, because that's no fun
makes
for
it
anyone.
Really boring,
It makes it a bit more interesting if, say, you cap it at like 3 or 4 Ireland players or people who are like currently playing football, and then try and get another 4 or 5 non-football kind of players as well. I think that'd be more interesting. I think people wouldn't be as like put off or scared against playing against a team that's littered with Ireland players. Of course, that's going to put people off.
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken to Simon a few times, and also a player, Beth. Very sorry, I can't remember her last name. Beth Craig, who's lovely. And me
She's
and Nick,
a Royalette as well, just to add in there.
and me and Nikki were talking that I think who's she been signed by? Blackpool. Yeah. And we were talking about having talented footballers on the island who then kind of get taken away from us.
There's not really, from what I can think of, there's not actually many players that have gone away and stayed away. I know there's people that have gone, they've kind of been on dual contracts.
Some have just been signed recently, haven't they?
Yeah, people have been signed, but they're not actually 16 yet. I think there's a couple of Laxey girls. But from my understanding is, I think they go away and then they can still play on the Isle of Man as well. We've just signed Tia Lissy who used to be at Laxey. She's at Royals now, and she was at Man United. And I'm pretty certain she was allowed to play for Man United, but on a dual contract when she came back. So if she's playing away and getting that experience, for me personally, certainly for the Island setup, I think that can only be a positive thing. And obviously she's going to definitely she's playing football away, and them experience she's going to have playing against better teams. It's only going to bring positive things to the Ireland team. Personally, for me,
do you get a lot of teams coming over to compete against you? I know you talked about a trip, Becky, with school kids, but as regular teams and the Ireland team, do you get much time competing against England
you don't
teams?
Really, to be honest. The men do seem to get a lot more. They seem to get more people coming over to play against them, and also they seem to get more games across.
Is there any particular reason for that?
I'm not sure if it's a funding issue, to be honest. The men do have a different sponsor to us. I don't know if they have a lot more money ploughed into their kind of thing, but obviously it'd be better for us if we were playing more competitive fixtures as an Ireland team. But we go on a training weekend before any major competitions, but apart from that we haven't really had anything else. We went away to an Ireland Games competition in June, was it?
Yeah. Is that in Isman?
Yeah,
which was a massive success story. Has that inspired younger players on the island, to look up to you guys? Because that was an awesome competition.
To be fair, when we came back, so many people, I think it was because it was separate as well. So because it wasn't an actual Island Games, there wasn't loads of everyone was talking just purely about football as opposed to all other sports. So I think there was a lot of publicity and a lot of people had heard about what happened and stuff. And I think it's kind of amazing to see how much the island comes together when something like that happens, really. You come back and you speak to people who you don't even think are actually into football, and they talk to you about it. It's really nice. But I think a lot of the young girls surely must look at the papers and have seen how well we've done as an Ireland team, and they've definitely got to aspire to be to eventually be kind of in that setup. I personally think now the young girls that are coming through, I actually only said this to somebody the other day, I wish I was 10 years younger or 5 years younger, because the players that are honestly coming through, I wish I was still young enough to be able to play with them in 5 or 10 years time, because the players that are coming through are literally a different class, and they should go on to be really successful in Ireland competition, certainly for the next 10, if not more years, which is kind of weird considering that the ladies game isn't actually at top strength, but the Ireland team seems to be really strong, so
the standard
it's kind
is
of
higher, even though the participation is depleted at that catchment, but the standard of the kids that are coming through is fantastic. It's really good.
The players that are coming through, honestly, I'm in total awe of some of them girls that are coming through. I genuinely wish I was literally 22, not 32, because they are just a different class.
Can you put that down to anything in particular? I mean, I know the World Cup was amazing and had a lot of exposure, and do you think that could have something to do with younger girls watching those videos and trying out those things and having role models and people to look up to? Because it can really go a long way just watching professional women playing football, in an easily accessible place, on the telly.
Us growing up, we didn't have it, did we? We didn't have you'd never turn on the telly and see a women's football match, whereas now that's a common occurrence. And they're getting more and more television time. You look at the World Cup, the ratings that the World Cup got. So our role models, when you asked us that question at the start, it was all family members or brothers or maybe males of the game. But whereas now you've got Lucy Bronze and all these England amazing women's footballers, that those kids can actually have a direct and look up and think, yeah, they are my role model. So
I think as well, they probably see a lot of young girls now getting signed up for Blackpool or Chester or Tia, who went to Everton, United, and I think they probably think, if they can do it, why can't I? Whereas probably when we were starting off 10, 15 years ago, it really wasn't, not many players, you didn't really see it very often, did you? So I kind of think now younger girls see other players going elsewhere and seeing how well they're doing, and I think, they probably think, why can't I do the same? So I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, at grassroots it's never been better. So participation sub 14, it's never been better. The coaching of the coaching standard alone is a lot better. There's more numbers at those clubs. It is just at the older end.
They can play in the lads league as well, can't they? So they can actually play in the boys leagues then as well. So that makes it more competitive for them. I know our Royals girls entered the boys team, and our under 14s and our under 12s team are actually immense. I think they've just announced a squad, of 17 that's in the under 14s, and I think 10 of them are Royals girls. And I think honestly that's down to playing in boys leagues as well.
I'll be on the bench next year.
Again.
All right.
Becky's nickname's got to be Splinter.
That's a really interesting point, and one I've brought up with in other sports as well, about girls training with boys and whether that could ease the tensions between, or like the assumptions that there's such a huge gap between how exciting like male and female sport is, but also a gap in ability sort of thing. So how do you find training with boys, and also what's the male attitude towards girls training with boys? Because speaking to the basketball girls, they were like, we had to prove ourselves, you know, we went in with a lot of the guys kind of tutting and saying, oh, we have to play with the girls, and then being pleasantly surprised. You know, it's always quite satisfying. Are you fighting against that sort of thing in the male football league as well?
I'm kind of sick of hearing my own voice, so if anyone else wants to chip in, if not, I'm happy to answer again.
I think it's different because we don't actually, I don't know,
We didn't grow up
No.
with the boys, did we?
like I played with the boys up until I was probably under 12s, and then when I hit 12, then it was training with the under 12 girls, and then a few of us went on to playing with the women, and we trained with the women even though it was 16 to play with them. We would still train with them up until, so we still were training with them, so we were more than capable of playing with them and being able to like hold our own against them, but we just weren't actually legally allowed to play with them. But yeah, we used to find it a bit. Me and my friend Sarah Wignall, she's currently in Miami on a football scholarship at the minute. Name dropping. Shout out to Wig. We used to play when we used to play with the boys. I think it was more of an age thing that they didn't really want to pass to the girls, and it was, you kind of had to make a statement that you were there and that you did want a pass and you wanted to be involved in the game, because I think of the age as well, they just weren't really a fan of involving the girls. But I think it changes now, because we had a signing this year, Shannon Primrose Smith. She was playing with the boys, Castletown boys, and she was actually made captain. So she was the only female in the Castletown team, and she was made captain for it over the boys.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I don't know, I think it just varies really.
I think there is a bit of a stigma still, like, against boys and girls playing football together. Like, I think boys, for me, I think the biggest thing that girls struggle with when they do move up to the ladies' league is probably the physicality. So if you have someone who's quite small or petite and they've not played against boys and they move up to the women's league, I think they kind of find it difficult playing against some of the more stronger, bigger women. Whereas I think if they've played in the boys' league, I think that kind of, it's an easier transition, definitely. And again, Tia, she plays in the Onken boys team, and she's so strong. She's stronger than me, and she's quite a tall girl. She's quite solid, but I think that's definitely helped her game playing with the boys. And I kind of think I personally would encourage it. If anyone asked me, should I play in a boys league, should I not, I think there's only positives to take from that, really.
So is there like a mixed league?
They can play in a boys' junior league up to the age of 16. So they do have that opportunity. And to be fair to boys, I think their opinion of women playing sport, I think that has improved. And I think that it is easy for the boys now. They do have more respect for the girls that are playing, which is great. It's just, if only they could have a sole league for those girls at that age. I mean, I started playing when I was 14 because the law hadn't come into effect. So I was on the pitch with women at the age of 14. Just like in the mixed hockey league, you can play at 14 against fully grown men who can hit the ball at 90 miles per hour. Okay, it still happens. So
I think it's I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's like more like a safeguarding. So if you're getting changed with women and there's like a 13-year-old and you're getting in the shower or getting changed with women, I think that's the issue. I don't necessarily think it's physically playing against them on the pitch. I think it's more the off the pitch kind of thing.
But I don't think that should be the issue now, because like most facilities now do have a women, the majority of them do have a women in the men's changing room, so I don't think that should actually be a factor that is one of the issues.
And to be honest with you, I think certainly I know at Royals we all have our own kit, so we generally tend to turn up in our kit. And if that kind of was an issue, you kind of just say, well, turn up in your kit and go home in your kit. I think there's ways around that. I think if that kind of spoils it, really, doesn't it? I kind of think there's not much of a
easy solutions to those
definitely
problems.
And there's 2 changing rooms always. There's a disabled change room if needs be. So I kind of think that issue could be easily sorted. Another issue with girls and boys playing mixed is a lot of girls feel a little bit intimidated by boys, and so again you still lose them, because I kind of think probably the more confident ones and probably players who think they're at a decent level would probably go and play with boys, but someone who just kind of does it for a bit of fun and thinks they're like kind of a mediocre kind of player, generally wouldn't go to a lads team because of the attitudes that would.
Well, I was just about to say, do you think that's down to physicality, like physical difference between men and women, or do you think it comes down to male attitude towards women? Because in terms of snowboarding, like in the freestyle park, I used to feel really intimidated going in the park, and it's majority guys, but as soon as the guys are like, go for this, Ray, you can do it, it makes such a huge amount of difference, rather than them sort of silently just waiting for you to like hit a jump or something, which isn't a very nice feeling. So do you think it's down to the physicality, or do you think it's down to male attitude?
I actually think it's both. I think obviously if you look at some boys who are playing the under-16s, they're big, they're strong, so they're not exactly small at that age, but also I think it's attitude as well. I think if they were really encouraging towards girls, I think maybe that would kind of help.
Yeah, one positive remark, it'd turn it around.
Definitely.
It's mindset, yeah.
I definitely think that's the case. And as you say, like if the more confident you are, the more like the happier you'll be in kind of an environment. So I think if boys teams were a little bit more encouraging and passed the ball and even just gave like positive feedback or comments, I think that would definitely help. But we've played, both the Ireland team and Royals have played against the under-16s Royals team at the time, and I think most of them played for the Ireland team as well, and they are fast and they are big and they are strong, and that's against women. So I can see why some of the girls would be.
We got back at that match, didn't we?
Royals, I think we actually lost about 10-0, and I think at one point, and then the Ireland team, to be fair, the Ireland team played it, so I think we lost 4-0, but still, they're, at that age, they're quick and they're fast and they're really fit, and I think I can kind of see why it would be a little bit intimidating. Not for me, not like physically, but just more because their ability, really.
Yeah, of
course, yeah.
And they are good at that age.
Yeah. Let's talk about, we touched on funding a little bit. What's funding like for women's football on the island in terms of sponsorship? And because obviously you need money to progress the sport, it's pretty much as simple as that. And I know like with the Islands netball team, we have to get individual sponsorship, but we're also supported really, really well by the Manx Netball Association and companies that sponsor the league. And I was like, oh, that we do really well for a women's sport. But then I was speaking to Bryn Snellgrove, and he was like, in comparison to rugby, you guys get nothing. And he wasn't saying it in a bad way. He was just like, it's just ridiculous how much more money they get. Yeah, and it's a constant struggle between like booking holiday days off and then actually being able to afford to go and compete abroad, where we have amazing opportunities to like play against America and Canada and whatnot, but when you haven't got the money, it's a really sad thing to not be able to represent your country in your sport because financially you can't afford it. So what's it like for women's football? I think it's the same with
ladies football, really. I think Nedbank were the last, well, they sponsor us now, and to be fair, they stepped in and I think they gave us quite a good chunk of money and bought us a new kit and stuff. But I generally think, like, if you look at the men's team and how many opportunities they get, both going off island and teams coming over, and just generally like the kind of, not, I wouldn't say treatment they get, but they do definitely seem to benefit more than what we do. You never really hear about how much the FA actually put in to like the game. I do believe they do put a chunk towards ladies, but I do still feel like the men definitely get more.
I don't really know. I don't know how much transparency there is, but when it comes to what funding we get, I couldn't actually give you the breakdown.
No, we still have to, when we go away to tournaments, like when we went to Innismore.
Self-funded?
How much did we have to pay? We paid for a training weekend, which
it
is
was
normally
$250 in total, wasn't it? And that included a training weekend, which I think broke down to £75 for the train, or £100 for the training weekend, £75 for the kit.
Yeah, and then $250 for the trip or something like that, wasn't it?
It did.
So that's all yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, so you have to pay that yourself.
Which I think's, like, obviously you do want to help, but I mean, yeah, like you said, like if you're representing your country, it's a bit of a shame that if you have to miss out because you can't actually find the funds for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they had to actually pay the same for Innismore, but they just seem to get, like, so we have Innismore, and then now the next tournament we probably go to will probably be the next Island Games in 2 years, but they seem like they've just had a team over at the weekend. They do seem to have a lot more teams coming over. I don't know if that's due to Paul Jones's contacts as well, to be honest, because he does seem to have quite a lot of contacts, because obviously he was heavily involved in the UK as well. But
would he not be willing to share those contacts with the
potentially? But it's
female
also
side?
the teams that come over, it's also very expensive for them to travel over as well, isn't it? And because the men are in they're in set different competitions as well, it's kind of beneficial for them to be playing against these kind of these kind of teams. And also because they're in other competitions as well, they do get more fixtures, so teams have to travel here or they do have to travel away, whereas we actually aren't in anything. We kind of, apart from the Island Games, we don't really have anything else planned. So,
which is a shame, really, because we don't actually, as an island team, we don't actually get to train with each other until 6 months before we have a competition, which is every 2 years. So apart from just playing against each other every Sunday or every other Sunday, it's not very often we actually get to properly train as a squad.
And then you kind of look at, obviously we got a gold medal last time we were away, and before then we got silver. So you kind of, it's not like we're not performing and we don't deserve to go away, because like the past 2 competitions we've entered, we've had 2 medals. I don't really know what else we can do to prove ourselves, or I know obviously it comes down to funding, but I mean...
But that's the thing, like, all you can really do, I would think, to secure funding is prove yourself as a squad and as athletes. And when you've gone away and got a silver and a gold medal, it sounds like the funding situation might be in place because it's been in place for a very long time, and that's now the general norm, and you guys are trying to sort of change that.
I think it's the classic thing is like Manx don't do change very well.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't
come easily, yeah. So what do you think you need to do besides going away and proving yourself? What needs to be done to sort of change those attitudes?
I think simply to answer the question, it comes with opportunities. So the women have gone away, they've shown what they can do, they've shown the level they can compete at and getting the medals that they have. Let's give them more opportunities. Let's create more contacts. Let's get a team visiting. Okay, they might have to pay a bit to come to our island, but we'll return the favour and we'll go and visit their club. We'll visit their town, we'll play a triangular of the teams in their league, and there's some more connections and they'll come over. And I think by doing that, you're going to increase the opportunities to play, and it's also increasing the platform of women's football on the island, because there's going to be more media coverage, there's going to be more influence.
Do you have any clubs in mind that you would approach in England about?
There's so many in the Northwest. There's so many established leagues.
I think because Nedbank sponsor us and Jersey, there was talks of doing like a triangular thing, so in between the Island Games going to say Jersey or them come to us, and maybe adding someone else in like Guernsey or Isle of Wight and trying to do something like that. And because Nedbank obviously sponsor both us and Jersey, it was kind of, I think the idea was to try and do something to give back to them as well, like sponsorship, like promotion wise. But again, it's just talk and nothing really has materialised, to be honest.
It needs to be more proactive at the top end, I think, a little bit.
We do have good contacts with Altrincham, and they've been able to play against us, and we were meant to play them in a training game last time when we went away, but unfortunately they had a fixture, a final or something the next day. But that's quite a good contact, and they seem to keep in touch with us and like Twitter posts and seem to get quite involved when we're actually playing for the island. So I think that's a good contact we've got. But I think for the island team just to get better, I do think that playing away or for teams to be coming over, I think that's kind of key, really, and just keeping the girls together as well, because as Corky said, we only really see each other when we're playing against each other on a Sunday, really.
I think that can happen at club level as well, though. I don't think it just has to be the island team who's going away and coming to visit. We can do it at club level fixtures, like for Standards of Cross in England. When I do the Iron Man Schools Girls trip, all I do is I go on the FA website, look at the directory, email a few people, I get some fixtures and we go. It's as simple as that.
I think someone actually just contacted me yesterday, Sarah Kerford, who used to play for Corinthians, and she's actually bringing her, I think, local team. She lives away now, so she's bringing her local team over for an Easter kind of tournament. So she's just contacted us and asked if we'd be keen to play. So I think that's like a club kind of thing. So I think she's asked Corinthians, who she used to play for, and Royals are going to play as well. So that's kind of something to... Sorry, Peel. That's kind of something to look forward to. And normally in the Easter holidays we've got quite a few teachers, so they're away, but we kind of think, well, we've got like 2 weeks off from football usually, so it's kind of nice just to do something. That's kind of something a bit different as well. It's probably going to be more boozy, isn't it, than actually playing football, I think, though. You know what them tours are like.
Well, speaking of booze, that's quite a nice segue. Let's do some less serious questions. I've heard stories, and to be fair, with netball as well, particularly at uni, if someone gets player of the match, basically...
never wanted that at uni.
What is the most gruesome thing that you've ever had to do from getting player of the match?
Dirty pint.
I don't think Corky's ever had it, so she won't be able to tell that.
We had to do a Big Bean tequila shot in Liverpool.
A baked bean tequila shot?
So every time on a Wednesday after play, and if you got player of the match, or I won't say the term, but kind of the idiot of the match, you went to this bar and it was a tequila bar, and the worst shot was Big Bean, and I had it several times, not for player of the match, probably for the other one, and it was vile.
I thought you'd like baked beans, mate.
I was going to say that, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
I can't
Phil's
stand beans.
definitely not appropriate.
Because I knew it was able to be edited.
That's the first edit.
Can I
we
swear
had a
on
bean
this?
joke.
We actually don't at Royals when we kind of have an initiation shot, so it's not really like player of the match. But any new people,
It was vile. It was horrible.
what is it? Any new people that come in, they have to do tequila,
They only-
Baileys,
yes.
and lime. So when
Yeah.
you mix it together, it
Curdles.
curdles.
Curdles,
So we
cement
just had
mixer.
Absolute bomb central.
Yeah.
We've just had two 16-year-olds join with us as well, so that was a nice.
Great promotion for underage drinking.
Everyone's over 18.
No, at uni it was a shot. So you had 5 shots from the top shelf, and then they'd fill it with cider, Guinness, and Carling, and then you had to neck that with a good song. And then
Then
normally
eat 2 crackers afterwards. We used to do.
your night ended like half an hour later. I didn't get that very often though, so it was all right.
What would you say is the most irritating stereotype that comes with women's football?
I'll answer that. Well, one of them. That you have to be a lesbian to play football is a massive, but more from men.
I thought you did, didn't you?
Oh, really? Yeah, that I got that a lot growing up as well, and I think some women kind of stop playing football for that reason because they get the connotation was you have to be big and butch as well, and it's like no, there's a lot of the youngsters out there who are probably a bit more skillful than the old stereotype of women's football.
Where did that stereotype come from?
You tell me.
It's attached to a lot of women's sport, but it does seem to come under the umbrella of women's football. I don't know the statistics. Maybe there is a larger proportion of gay people who do play football, but I don't think it should even matter as a conversation.
Well, no, it
really. I
shouldn't.
don't think
No,
it should be a
definitely not.
stigma.
But I do
Well,
feel
it's
like
not the stigma of ladies football compared to, say, if you look at like netball or any like hockey, it's not really surrounding.
Yeah, I think
women's
it's-
Women's
sport.
rugby doesn't
women's-
get as much.
no.
Rugby gets it a little bit, but not quite as much.
No women
But
as much as football.
I think it's because football is classed as a boys' sport, and I think that's maybe why. If you look at netball, it's not really classed as a boys' sport, and I think that's maybe why you kind of, if you play football, then you're kind of a bit of a tomboy or a bit of a lad.
Even if you are, it's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that was the main one I'd heard growing up, and I just wondered why, really. Yeah, I mean, like you said, with netball, it was seen as a girly sport, and I always felt like the most ungirly girl playing netball. So it was kind of like, I don't know, annoying stereotypes.
Is that the reason you didn't start playing football then, or?
Yeah. I remember being in primary school, and I was never really the coolest. Becky knows. And
You're welcome, yeah.
You actually did say that before we came, to be honest.
well, Ree's so uncool, guys. And I remember saying, "Oh, you're gonna stay behind to play footy," and like one of the boys was like, "Huh, footy? Don't you mean football?" And I was just like, "Well, like, I'm gonna play netball now." Okay, one question I ask everyone: have you ever had a moment of rage during a game, or like you were talking about downstairs? Has anyone been sin-binned before? And if you have,
New rule.
what
yeah.
for?
It's only really come in this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Somebody
it's
we
this
played
year.
against Corinthians 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
someone got
And somebody got
sin-binned.
sin-binned for the last 10 minutes, which was actually, it was a big loss to them because I think we were winning 2-1 at the time, but the game was fairly tight, wasn't it? And she got sin-binned, and we
What
ended up
for?
winning. I believe apparently
Altercation with the ref.
there was 2 players having a bit of argy-bargy, and I think she turned around and said, "Are you not watching the game, ref?" or something like that. But you're not allowed to say anything directly to the ref or about the ref. And then, yeah, he just gave the sin bin, but we ended up winning 4-1. And because
I don't think it was
go on.
down just to the sin bin, Kim.
no, I'm just saying, like,
No, but it can change
when
the
you go
game.
down
It
to
can,
10,
yeah, definitely.
10 players, there's so much more space we had.
Yeah,
you
there
noticed,
was.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
And in ladies football, goal difference actually doesn't count. It's only head-to-heads. So them 2 goals could prove vital, comes to the
Yeah,
end
definitely.
of the season. And so for us, we were made up that we obviously scored 2 more. But for them, unfortunately, it just created so much more space for us to play into. So I think the sin bin might catch a few people out. I think, did someone got threatened in your game, didn't they, Becky Corkish?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Again, it was just like chatting to the ref, but I mean, the way I remember it was I was politely asking him if he could explain his decision, but I don't think it actually came across as a polite question to him. Yeah, I basically just asked him to explain his decision, but because obviously I didn't agree with it, it might have come across in a more aggressive tone because I wasn't 100% happy with it and didn't agree with it. Yeah, I basically said if I carried on speaking, then I was going to get sin-binned, but I think
Good
Allowed to-
rule.
Yeah, I think so. It just takes away any, like, angriness, and it kind of takes out the venom a little bit out of the game, because you know yourself, if something doesn't go your way, it's the easiest thing to do is just turn at the ref and say something. You're not allowed to say anything to the ref or like about the ref, or even you're not allowed to like swear, even if it's like around kind of a decision kind of being made.
It's even like swearing at yourself though, isn't it, as well? Like if you take a shot and you miss it and you swear at yourself out loud, you'll get sin binned for it.
That's a bit harsh, I feel.
Yeah.
I think because usually you can tell if something's directed at a ref or an umpire.
But look at the professional game there.
I know, that's
Most
the
of the
hardest
time,
part.
You
They're
actually
awful.
can read their lips exactly what they're saying. So it's kind of not setting a precedent to us to not do that. Like it kind of.
You look at a rugby match, you don't see that level of disrespect to one of the officials. You look at a netball match, you never see that level of disrespect. Whereas in the Premier League, it's almost part of the game. And then at the lower levels, we're trying to enforce it as, no, that's not right. You need to respect the refs and the decisions that are made. But you watch a Saturday Premier League game and it's awful.
They sometimes up in refs' faces and actually like, you know, pointing fingers or like screaming in their faces. Yeah, over here we're told we're not even allowed to say anything, like even if it's indirectly to the ref. It kind of doesn't match up for me really, but
And that's what the youth are watching as well every Saturday.
That's what they're seeing, isn't it? The youth are watching.
One thing I noticed about the Women's World Cup, I hate saying the Women's World Cup, I just feel like it should just be the World Cup, was that the women, when they went down, were very quick to get back up rather than be like, it's a Christmas pantomime. Do you know what I mean? Because I personally hate that about
and it is a
football.
pantomime. It is.
It actually brings like proper frustration to me watching the men go down when they like very rarely get even touched and they go down because they'd rather have the free kick or the penalty. Whereas in women's, it seems to be like they get straight back up because they want to carry on with the play, and it just it's like stopping the play almost. It just means like a smoother game as opposed to constantly stopping and starting for free kicks all the time.
It's also not a good precedent set for younger players, I don't think, you know, and you have such, I mean, football, is it probably the most watched sport in the world? And, you know, I mean, you're going to get kids just like, exactly, just mimicking that behaviour.
It's interesting though, when it was the I can't remember, it was about a month ago, and it was the first ever all-female officiated men's Premier League game. So it was women linesmen, a women referee, everything was the women. And it did change the tone of the game. It flowed better, and the men not once argued with the ref.
But did you notice every time if they did go over to the ref to like talk to her, every single fella had their hands behind their back. It was almost as if they'd been told, do not raise your hands towards the women refs or the women officiates at all.
That's really interesting. And are we going to be seeing more of that?
Well, they had fantastic reviews post-game, that the women held the game, they caught up with the pace of the game and everything. So I think it was a really good advert for...
What about with the crowd? Because you see in professional football, the crowd really like laying into the refs. Yeah. Did you see a difference in crowd behaviour when it was female referees?
I didn't really note the crowd.
No.
I think everyone was a little bit on the best behaviour for it because it was quite. It was hyped up before the match. It was Liverpool-Chelsea.
Was it?
It was the Super Cup, so it's not the Premier League one yet, but it's the first one of Premier League teams. But the feedback they got from the Chelsea players, the Chelsea staff, the Liverpool players on the pitch, they said they felt the game had a lot more control with having the female referees. Whether that is down to because they were female, but the feedback was so. Hopefully they will replicate it. We've got female linesmen in the Premier League, but not an actual female referee yet.
Well, hopefully that.
Time,
you know, that's only a matter of time, like you say, because I think you still get that stigma. I mean, I had a conversation with someone earlier in the week who was talking about getting annoyed that there's women presenters on BBC Sport and then saying, actually he doesn't mind them because they seem to know what they're talking about. And I was just like, why would BBC Sport give a woman a job if she didn't know in depth about sport? And it just amazes me.
It's rudeness and ignorance, I personally.
But hopefully, step by step, having these presenters, having these officials, and having more women's face around the sport will help alleviate that stigma.
Such an old-fashioned stigma,
so
though.
dated,
it's
isn't it?
so dated, you know. And then going back to like. That's so dated, and then actually if you're a woman and you're good at sport, then you must be like a butch lesbian, like you say. So it's like, God, it's like a lose-lose. So I think it's really important and vital that everyone in all female sports just keeps plugging away and plugging away and plugging away until it eradicates the majority.
Doing your job, flogging your job as well, and make sure women are brought to the radio a lot more.
Definitely. It's like the most enjoyable part of my job.
Yes.
Let's go on to the most nervous you've ever been before a match. and if you have any pre-game routines that like you're superstitious about. If you've played a really good game and you were wearing a certain pair of socks, do you have to wear that pair of socks every game? Anyone have any of those superstitions?
I actually don't really get totally nervous anymore. I do a little bit when we're playing for the Ireland team, but we kind of have a few like rituals of the Ireland team. So before we go to not big games, just any game, as soon as we got onto the coach, the music is literally blared to the max. And once the speaker's on, it's literally like a rave. Everyone's on their feet, they're banging the roof, the windows, and I think that kind of takes away the nerves a little bit. Sometimes in the changing rooms when you're getting ready, getting your kit on, I kind of feel a little bit nervous. But as soon as you kick that ball for the first time, I kind of think nerves disappear. But on Ireland, I actually don't think I get nervous anymore, to be fair. I think it's a sign of old age now. I think it's age.
Yeah, I can't say I get too nervous. My only ritual is playing netball before it and then going straight to 30 pitch.
They're talking about netball. This is football, hun, not netball.
But no, I think as long as your first touch is good on a footy pitch, then you settle.
You're normally okay because you're sat on the bench, so it's fine. So you've got a chance to watch the match first for the 45 minutes.
Get benched once and that's me now.
I'm joking.
Thanks, Captain. Do you get nervous, Corky?
Yeah, I mean, no, well, it depends who we're playing. If it's one of the bigger games, then yeah, I do get nervous because I feel pressure that I want to do, like, our club proud. And then, when we were at Yunus Mon, it was the final, and we were playing, like, at Yunus Mon, at their home stadium against the home team. So obviously the entire crowd was basically a Yunus Mon crowd. And I remember they were chanting and the drum was banging, drowning our tiny little coach speaker out. And I just remember how nervous it was then. But again, you just got to like zone it completely out and just focus on what you're there to do and that you want to win. And
would you say that's one of your football career highlights?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely, because it was my second Island Games. So my first Island Games was in Gotland and we won the silver. And as much as sad as it was, you had to lose to get the silver. So obviously you should still be so proud that you won the silver medal, but you had to lose a gold to win the silver. So this time round when we went and won the gold, it was like, yeah, ridiculous. Like so proud to have the 3 legs on my chest.
Feels like it's been a long time coming, to be fair though, doesn't it? We've kind of been knocking on the door of the bronze medal and a silver medal.
Missing out.
And I think that silver medal always feels like a loser's medal for me personally. Yeah. Even though you should be proud of getting a silver, for me personally, I just think it's classed as a runners-up medal. So I think Yunus Mon was definitely a special time. As Beck said, it's like playing against their like hosting nation and playing in a stadium full of like their fans.
That can be so off-putting.
It was so intimidating. Like I remember when we were 2-0 up, weren't we? And I think there was half an hour left and Yunus Mon got 1 goal to make it 2-1, and the entire crowd just erupted and got behind them for the last half an hour, and they were just, oh god, it was just ridiculous, like trying to focus and not like zone in on what they were shouting and everything. I don't know how professional footballers do it. I don't think my heart could actually take another one.
But you did do it. You know, you proved that you did it and came back with the golds, which makes that win even more impressive, I think.
Yeah, and you could tell like as soon as we won it as well, like all the girls just dropped to their knees and like the tears were absolutely streaming. Kim, to say the least, anyway.
I know. I don't know what actually happened to me.
More water than Sulby River running down that face.
I think it's probably because I've probably only got 1 more Island Games left in me, I think, so it feels a bit more special now. I don't know why I was crying so much. I think it was tears of joy, to be honest. But I think after playing like back to back, I think it was 4 games as well. I think you're physically tired as well. Maybe not so much like Corky because she's only 12, but certainly me at 32 now. I played like every game, every minute of every game. So I think I was physically tired and. It just feels like it's been a long time. It's
incredibly mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting. I would imagine.
To be fair, and trying to look after a team of kids as well, and trying to keep up with them. I think that's actually more exhausting, to be honest. But
first one to bed on the night out.
I know. But yeah, it was good. I think, as I said before, the girls that are coming through now, I can only see the Ireland team going from strength to strength now. The calibre of players that are coming through are ridiculously good, and I think that's just the start of things to come really for them. Maybe myself one more time, but certainly for the 16-year-olds that are due to come through now, they're just absolutely brilliant.
Nikki?
So I don't play anymore. I've gone into the coaching side, and I think I get more nervous now as the kind of coach manager of a team that I'm trying to build up from scratch than when I played. Nerves never affected me. I think, and what I'm trying to do with the girls at the minute is explain that football is 50% skill and fitness, and the other 50% is mental side. So for me, I've always kind of studied the psychology of sport. So that's kind of what I'm working with them. So yeah, I feel more nervous now on a Saturday night knowing on a Sunday I have to go out and I've got 14 girls looking at me saying, "Come on, Nikki, I want you to turn this around." And I'm thinking, I've started from here and we're progressing in the right way.
How do you coach the girls if they go on and have a shocker in the first 20 minutes of a game? What do you say to them at half time to mentally turn them around?
Probably can't say live on radio, can you, what you'd say?
Hey, I'm positive. Stevie G, we go again. So, when we play the likes of these guys, we know the game plan for this season is keep the results low. I don't say to them we set out to get beat. I said, but from last season and the previous seasons, keep the score low. And take the positives out of each game. So we're getting feedback from other teams that we're playing at the minute to say they can actually see the progression. I'm getting messages from different managers, different people who are playing, saying actually for what you're doing with the girls, and they can see the difference. So for me, it is that positivity.
Well, yeah, and it's you're so right. You can always find a positive aim or a positive outlook from a very difficult situation that can mentally beat people down into not wanting to play anymore. So I think that's the sign of a really, really good coach.
Losing the game of football, you can normally find more like positives, or you can normally find definitely something to work on. So I kind of think sometimes losing the game of football you get more from actually winning. It's certainly things to work on anyway, and I think personally, Nikki, I think you should be still playing, to be honest, but I remember having a couple of good tussles with you when you were playing centre forward and I was playing centre half, but no, I think as you say, it's kind of changing the girls' attitudes, isn't it, trying to get them to believe in themselves, and it's kind of looking at previous results in previous years and just trying to better that. It's not necessarily trying to beat teams, but trying to better what you've done before.
Exactly, 100%.
And I think that's definitely the right way to think.
Yeah, hitting the nail on the head when you say making the girls believe in themselves, because I think naturally, kind of as a gender, we can be quite apologetic and the first people to put ourselves down when we've done something really, really awesome. And I think when you've got the stigma surrounding the sport as well, and then potentially men who are playing and don't necessarily take you as seriously as you deserve to be taken, that's a lot of factors going against you. So I think it is vital to have coaches who do just solely focus on you're badass at this sport and you need to be the first person to know it, and even if your skills aren't quite there yet, you fake it till you make it, and you work hard and you graft hard.
It's nice to see like more women coaches as well involved.
Well, absolutely. What are women coaches and women's ref numbers like?
Well, refs now
used to have Joe Hicks,
and I'm not joking, she's the best ref ever, and
So
there's probably only one referee that has honestly kept Becky Cole in check, and that was Joe Hicks, and she was firm but fair. She was brilliant, and to be fair, I used to play with Joe as well. She used to play at Royals, and she was a great player as well, and she was very respected as a player and as a referee, so it's a shame that she doesn't do it now. I'm not actually sure what
she's
she
playing
does
netball now.
I actually saw her last
week.
And golf as well.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So her Sundays are probably busy, but she's a great ref, and it is a shame. I think Sarah Kerford was involved in reffing a little bit, or certainly doing the line, but obviously she doesn't live here anymore. But yeah, I think it's nice to have more women.
So it's still predominantly male coaches.
It is.
And
I don't think is there actually
officials.
any other ladies coaches or
No, I think
managers?
There is a rule that you have to, it came in this year, you do have to have your FA coaching badges. So I've got level 1 and 2, and I'm actually looking to do my UEFA badges, but I don't know on the island if there is anybody else who, they probably have got it, but whether they want to go into coaching. And I didn't really want to afterwards. When I realised after my operation that I couldn't play, I turned away from the sport and really missed it, absolutely missed it. And then my wife obviously plays, so I just thought I need to get back into it in some capacity, and I just didn't think I would be a coach or a manager, and kind of ended up in this position, and I really enjoy it, and I actually have the passion back for it, but in a totally different way.
Yeah.
We have Tracy Craig, so Beth's mum, who's heavily involved at Royals, and what she's done with the junior teams, she's an absolute genius. Her commitment and general drive for girls football, probably a lot to do with Beth playing as well. It's just absolutely amazing, and I think she literally has some of the players that Royals have got. I'm not obviously just being biased, I'm at Royals as well, but some of the players she's got and the effort and time she's put into them teams, she actually genuinely deserves like a big merit, to be fair. And it's rare to see ladies coaches and staying involved. But I think if you've got a daughter playing, I think it makes it a little bit easier. But she must have about 40 girls playing at Royals, and they are very good. Some of them come to ladies training with us now.
Hold their own completely.
They don't like look out of place really, do they? And they're going to obviously step up in a couple of years to our women's team. And it's.
I've spoken
really
to Tracy a few times. She's a very impressive woman with what she's doing with the younger players, definitely.
I don't think she sleeps, to be honest.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I don't.
Doesn't sound like it the times I spoke to her.
I know she works about 5 jobs and coaches about 15 hours a day. So
I think there is an older generation in women's football at the moment that maybe in about 5 years' time might take that step back from playing. And there's a lot of players who've got their badges in that field. And so you might start seeing some more coaches, which would be amazing coming through.
Talking about Donna Shimmin, or
yeah, Donna's got her badges. Yeah.
Donna is ridiculously good.
I've got my badges.
When she retires at 15,
surely.
Donna literally is ridiculous at coaching. She's so good. She's like a fountain of knowledge, and obviously she's still playing now. But I guess when she stops playing, I think she'd be definitely someone good to get back.
We've got a female manager now, Zoe Hawley's taken us on this year. So yeah, I think
you're moving in the right direction.
Definitely, yeah.
Good.
Zoe's an ex-player, and she's not playing anymore, so she kind of wanted to give something back a little bit, and because she's heavily involved with Royal still anyway, she kind of took the reins a little bit off me, so I can just concentrate on playing. But she's working wonders. She's super organised, and she's like super keen as well, so that's obviously a good sign.
Let's go back to the Laxey game. Nikki, do you want to tell us how that went? Because we had a chat about that being a platform for a much deeper message.
Yeah. So it was really good. So we had obviously the rainbow laces that we spoke about last week, and it was really good when we turned up because we were playing at Laxey's home ground. They all made the effort, so they didn't all get laces in time, but they all wore something rainbow. So they had the bangles on, and it had a really big feel around that game, like it was some sort of cup final game. Loads of people turned up as well. Just people who were not just fans of the sport. And it was the girls, every single player on that pitch for Laxey and for Royals, Old Boys, was they played the heart out, and it was a tough game, and it was we came out on top 1-0. I think when the whistle went, I turned around to the Laxey manager and I was just like, I need a whiskey. I said, I can't put up with that. Every week my heart was just
pounding.
Yeah.
That's a great result for you guys, though, because Laxey I kind of think sometimes Laxey are our bogey team a little bit when we play against them.
Got some strong players.
Got some really strong players.
And they fielded a strong team as well, so that's why it meant even more, because they didn't put a weak team out. They went for it, and they did really well. They were unlucky with chances. We got some lucky chances as well. So I think it was the right result. Because the manager came up to me and said that the difference with the girls is the girls and my team had the fitness, which we've kind of been working on, and that was it. The last 10 minutes, the legs and their heads didn't go. And the last 10 minutes, you could see Laxey, they're a little bit of a younger team. Their kind of mentality, I think, they just dipped a little bit, and that was when we kind of...
It's about composure in the dying minutes.
And that's what I kept saying to the girls, was like, that chimp in your head, just calm it down. Them 10 minutes felt like an hour. But yeah, they kept it together, and I was proud of them.
Who are you playing this weekend, Nikki?
We're free this weekend, so I'm going down to scout a game.
Don't be saying that live on radio.
You jinxed it now.
I know.
No chance.
Talk about nerves. I've got them now.
What prompted you to use that game or choose to make a statement with the rainbow laces now to promote equality in women's sport on the island? Had you seen, I know I asked you this briefly, but I'm going to ask you again, had you seen many examples of inequality in sport on the island?
So no, I've not seen any specific examples. Like I said last week, it was more because I do a lot of it outside of sport as well. So I do it within work. I was shortlisted for a Responsible Business Award in regards to equality, diversity and inclusion. So it just felt it was the right kind of the platform to then bring it into, instead of a business environment, bring it into a sport environment as well. And I thought it was the right time for the girls. There was a method behind it as well, so we can give them something else to focus on during that game. So.
Just 2 last questions. The first is a bit bigger than the island. How do you think the World Cup impacted women's sport? Because we were talking about this in an episode of Perspective, and the Netball World Cup and the Football World Cup, it was everywhere and it was brilliant and it's exactly what is needed. But then I remember going on the BBC Sport page and there was Serena Guthrie from England Netball and your lady who just won, I think, American Female Footballer of the Year.
Was it Lucy Bronze?
Yes, I think so. They were the faces, the women's faces at the top of the BBC Sports page. and which is great. And then I scrolled down and scrolled down and scrolled down and scrolled down, and it was nothing, like literally nothing else. So I was just like, is this just surface deep? You know, I know we've got a long way to go, but do you feel like there's a real movement now in terms of women's football around the world, or do you think that it was just a flash in the pan moment?
Why is everyone looking at me? Corky's hardly said anything.
For you personally, like as players, sorry I keep on talking like about netball, it's just the only way I can like relate it back, but in terms of the Netball World Cup, it gave me a lot of hope, because I was like, this looks like it's a surge, and now it's moving on to like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and England netball is getting loads more coverage. You know, you can watch Super League games on Sky Sports Mix, which isn't accessible to everyone, but at least it's sort of chipping away at it, more exposure, and it feels like it's the start of bigger things to come. Do you get that feeling with women's football?
I definitely think the World Cup has given more publicity to the sport, and I think now that kind of precedent is set. I think it can only get better in terms of publicity.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't die down for me. They've got to keep the momentum going. I've been around, I know a couple of the old England players back in the day, so I used to go and watch the kind of early 2000s England women's team. Went to see them play against France at Ewood Park, and the crowds that they were getting there in the stadium, they were probably lucky if they were getting 1,000. So what they're getting now on a kind of national level is brilliant. But also I think the Super League, so the Women's Super League's done wonders for us. I think what they've done by moving it as well to playing it in the summer, which we touched on earlier, just got to keep the momentum going. And there is coverage there. So each week the League Football Show, they do a segment on women, but we're always afterwards. So you've got the Premier League, match of the day, then you have like the League One, and then I think we come on about 12:30 at night, so it's normally when I'm coming in after a night out, and I stick it on, and I think that's wrong. We should be part of match of the day.
Yeah, and it is annoying. And we did an episode on athletics, and the good thing about athletics is that male and women's sport is covered, that it's all there in one place together. And it's the same with disability sports as well. You know, you show the Olympics and then the Paralympics afterwards, and it does make one feel less important than the other, to put it bluntly. And I find that, even like I said before, with calling it women's football, you know, why when it should just be called football.
Match of the day for it all.
I kind of think when you look at like some of the venues that the matches are being held at, and the fact that they're selling completely out, I kind of think that speaks for itself, really. So I think personally, I think it's, as Nikki said, now we have to keep on top of it. Now we've got to a certain standard, and I think now you have to keep pushing it and keep kind of promoting it.
It's moving in the right direction, but even if you look at males' pay, that they're paid 100 times more than women, female Premier League players.
100 times. It doesn't even surprise me that it's
so
ridiculous.
A male player gets
some of
$3
those
million a
salaries.
year.
Yeah.
So I think the equality of it, the gap's still there. But as you say, with the surge, and the netball is a fantastic example, there does seem to be that surge and that next big thing. So hopefully with those big occasions, the depth will follow. And then hopefully the platform will rise, and it will just be an equilibrium of women and male sport. And hopefully that is the future.
I think the fact that the England ladies aren't having to work as well as play professional football, that's kind of
some of them still do.
Step in the right direction, because at one point they were still working like
some of them still do though. So there's only a set amount of players that are on. Everyone's got a professional contract, but they say 80% of the footballers who play for England and like Chelsea and Man City, some of them still hold down another job or two jobs, because it's not enough to pay their rent as well, which is, you think that's just not right. If that's the Premier League of women for us, and I think Steph Horton's on the most, I think she's on about 64,000, and that's massive. But then the step down is some of them will be on like 16,000. How can you survive on that?
It's mad, isn't
and then
it?
You look at what the men get.
They just blink and they get.
They probably get that per minute. Some of them.
Yeah, we're promoting equality and everything. It just.
We need to look at other countries as well. So where the World Cup was hosted helped, because France is a really strong women's league. Hence why some of our England women players are going there. Look at the USA, Sweden, Germany. Them leagues are all coming up. I think the kind of UK women's FA, or the FA as a whole, just needs to look at what do they do right then. And pinch ideas.
I remember seeing an interview, I think it was on like the Breakfast Show or something, and there was a woman speaking about whether women should be paid the same in sport, and she said no, because of the coverage. And again, it feels like you can see where she's coming from, but then when women are performing and proving themselves to be real athletes, it's out of their power
Reward them with the coverage.
with the media. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
Double-edged sword.
double-edged sword. I mean, I don't know if you've seen a film called A League of Their Own about
baseball when
the
they
baseball.
who
It's
stepped in when the men went to war, so the
Yeah.
women had to come and play baseball in skirts. And you
Yeah,
think,
exactly. So the men went to war and the women had to play baseball, and everyone was like, girls can't play ball and da 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 da, and then it was down to the women to like do splits to like catch the ball, and then eventually
hair.
they had a huge following, and it's one of the films I'll watch if I need to get like psyched up before a netball game. but it just kind of reminds me of that these women are incredible athletes, and then also working and proving themselves, and it's just kind of like, what else do you have to do?
Well, the media has such a big influence on everything that we do. So they started playing a little bit more catch up and had more equal media and coverage time.
yeah.
I think the rest would follow.
Absolutely, because I think a lot of people watch football. I mean, it's a wonderful game, and it's it is an inclusive game in terms of sort of class through the ages.
Yeah.
Everyone's been able to play football, and I think it's just always on. So no wonder it's so popular. And when people are like, well, people don't want to watch women's football, it's like, well, no one can watch women's football because it's not on. So if it was on and it was on in the background, you never know how popular it could be purely for accessibility, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just a bit of a rant. That wasn't really a question.
Based on the fact you were saying that football's such a great game, does that mean we might have a new recruit?
Get signed up.
You just don't need it at Royals, so like you've got enough.
I enjoy football. I just can't. Whenever I kick the ball, though, my hands kind of go out like jazz hands, which I don't understand. It's like a
Try
weird
and catch
tick.
a throw in.
I think my netball with their friends.
One final question for you all: what is your favourite thing about football, and how would you inspire more girls to take it up?
For me, I think it's one of the best things about football is certainly the social element. I think a lot of the girls I currently play with and I started at Royals with are my best friends now. So it kind of feels like you're exercising and doing something you love and playing football, but also with your best friends. And also a few of the kind of trips away and the experiences we've had with the Ireland team. I think it's the last 2 Ireland games, and I, apart from having my son, I don't think there's been any better experiences for me. And it's the trips are more than just playing football and that 90 minutes or them 3 or 4 games. It's the laughs and the banter and everything else that comes with it. It's literally like being away with your best mates for a week, playing 4 games of football, doing something you absolutely love. So I think that's definitely a positive thing for me.
I think it just turns into like your family. Like I'd say like the football, like Kim said, like they do turn into your best friends, and they're the ones that you call upon to go for a beer with at the end of the we all tend to go for a beer at the end of the game anyway, but even like apart from a Sunday, my friends are the ones that I would call upon to go like out for a walk or anything. Are your football team?
Yeah, I think it comes down to that team camaraderie. That's the biggest thing for me, is that united front of you're all training, you're all playing for that same common goal. And yet at the end of it, you're still socially, that is your friendship group, that is your team. So working towards that together and achieving it together, I think it's great at winning things as a team, and there's no better feeling.
I think if you take that away, I don't think it would actually be enjoyable. If you took away the camaraderie and the kind of fun and everything else that comes with it, I don't think it would be anywhere near as good as what it is now. So for girls that want to get involved, I think obviously if you're interested in football anyway, but I'd probably say that you'll join a team and probably meet your best friend you've ever met, ever had, really, to be fair. So,
and the thing is, I think it's just before I come to you, Nikki, there can be quite a negative stigma about girls being mean to each other, and I don't know what it is, but girls bringing down other girls. And I think with sport, it's such a wonderful thing to see women supporting women. Just knowing that you can step onto a pitch or a court, and knowing that those six women and the people in the crowd or on the bench, they're just there for you. You know, it's like literally girl power, really. And I think that's a really good, awesome thing to see.
I think that's what I've noticed from like when you watch the men's game. Like if they go like 1-0 down, 2-0 down, they get on each other's backs dead quick, and they're swearing at each other and giving each other grief for like missing a pass, missing a shot. Whereas with the women, I mean, as frustrating as it is when you see like an open chance and it's not being taken, you still encourage each other to keep going, and you don't get on each other's backs, because at the end of the day, that's what was going to make the game go worse, by not encouraging each other to carry on.
That's a really good point. Nikki?
So I think the guys have covered most of it. I think for me, I think if I look back and say what was the biggest benefit, so probably growing up, it's probably the mental health side of it for me. It was giving me something to focus on. At school, I was quite a kind of a high performer all round, and I just give myself too much pressure. That was sport was a release for me, and I think it is now. My job Monday to Friday is just absolutely manic. I work long hours. It's quite a pressure job that I have. So to come to a Sunday, it's just it just lifts my spirit. I've got something to look forward to, and I definitely think just the whole kind of the sport side for mental health is brilliant, and that's how I want to encourage girls to get involved for it as well. So everything the guys touched on, it's to help your own self-esteem and just feel good about yourself.
And I think on that nice note,
That's a
we will
great
end it
way
there.
to end
And that's
it.
a lovely
Love
thing
that.
to say, Nikki.
Thank you very
I feel
much.
a bit emo after listening to that.